You know the scene. It's 9:30. You're trying to get your kid to sleep. You tried many times. You're exhausted. You're having that bedtime battle, and someone suggests, hey, what about melatonin for the little one? You might think it's a good idea, but many parents miss out on knowing how to think about this. The answer is not to just say never, no melatonin ever, but it's also not just, hey, give them a gummy and let's see when they sleep. So by the end of this video, you're going to know what has the strongest evidence, where melatonin might actually help, what the evidence does not prove, where there's uncertainty, and what to discuss with your pediatrician. This isn't about finding a sleep hack for your kid. It's really more about learning about different trade-offs so you can make a wise decision. I'm Dr. Hack. I'm here to help empower you with evidence-based medical information so you can make wise decisions. Feel free to join my free newsletter, medicalwisdom.org, for deeper dives and personal takes. So the first thing to think about is that there's a common misconception of if something is natural, it's going to be harmless. Remember, cyanide is natural. It kills you. Contact lenses are very unnatural, but they can save your life. So you have to consider whether something is over the counter versus whether it's actually harmless and whether it's actually well studied and is it the first line treatment? These are all very different questions. So don't fall into the natural equals good trap. For example, with melatonin, you might say, oh, it's a naturally occurring hormone in the body, so it must be good and safe. There's no problems. It's just definitely not true. The second thing is you have to consider where is the strongest evidence whenever you're having a medical problem that you want to intervene on. Where is there the best effectiveness and the lowest side effects? So the strongest evidence for sleep interventions in a young kid is behavioral sleep strategies. Melatonin is not the first line. You can consider it in selected cases. And we also are going to talk about iron deficiency and restless legs. That can also be a consideration. And then antihistamines like Benadryl or sedatives, these are not routine and there's not really good evidence for them. And remember, there's no pediatric insomnia drug that's FDA approved. That doesn't mean that your pediatrician's never going to prescribe anything or recommend anything, but you have to be really careful. Just because something is labeled as such doesn't mean that it's evidence-based. It depends on the clinical context that the child is in. It depends on their age, their diagnoses, their other risk factors, and even the dose of the medicine. As I mentioned, behavior is the cornerstone. That doesn't mean that you're not doing anything. It doesn't mean that, well, there's nothing that we're really offering the kid. This is actually the best supported treatment. So consistent bedtime and wake time, even on the weekends. That's a key thing to try. You can use an alarm, for example. A predictable calming routine, doing the same thing every night before bed really helps the kid develop the habit and lets their body learn to wind down. Having a cool bedroom, not hot. Many parents think that more heat is better for kids to sleep. It's actually a cool bedroom, dark and quiet. And the big one is parents, turn off your phones. You can't have the lights from the phones in the bed. So no screens and no lights. That's really a big thing because those lights actually have special wavelengths that keep the brain awake. So this is a boring intervention, but it's not so high tech, but it really does work. The other thing is if your kid is hyper, it might be because their body clock is delayed. And the amount of light and where they're getting it can delay the body clock so that they're actually awake too late. So you have to ask yourself, are they getting the right amount of morning light when they wake up? That's going to anchor the day and stabilize the rhythm. And then, as I mentioned, the screens at bedtime are going to throw things off. It's going to push the sleepiness feeling to later. And something that looks like hyperactivity could just be a sleep phase that's shifted too late. And remember, with melatonin, it's not a sedative. It's not something that makes you fall asleep. It's a body clock cue. It's a circadian rhythm cue. All it does is tell the body what time it is, that it's sleep time. It changes the biological clock for when sleepiness is supposed to start. It's not like an antihistamine like Benadryl that's going to make you sedated. And it's not a fix. It's not a long-term fix. And that matters because that's going to help us interpret the situation with many kids. So what do melatonin studies actually show? It's very modest improvement. So 22 minutes faster falling asleep and sleeping for a total of 33 minutes more in the night. And sleep latencies about 28 minutes. It's modest improvement. It's not bad. But these are group averages. They might not apply to every kid. And they're not what you might expect, like taking a kid to an additional 2 hours of sleep. But they're not nothing either. Because remember, this is a cycle showing what happens during daytime and nighttime. Cortisol is going to peak in the morning, and then as the body temperature drops, people are going to get more sleepy. That's why a cool bedroom actually helps you sleep deeper. And then alertness is supposed to peak late in the morning. That's why it's good to take exams in the morning. The other thing to consider is that even in these melatonin studies, they're often done in kids with neurological conditions or other conditions. We don't see a lot of trials in typically developing kids. For example, this 2026 review of studies, it's not really representing most kids. So there's an evidence gap here. And even for melatonin, I wouldn't even take it to be beneficial for the general population. So personally, I would not recommend it because you need good studies before you recommend something. And parents are often fixated on the dose. How much should I give? But that's not really the most important question. The most important thing to think is, why is sleep onset not happening? Find the underlying cause. You need an overall plan first, looking at the timing of the day, the routine, other diagnoses, other medicines are on, what's the product quality, is this person being monitored over time? Then you can put dose in there with all these other variables. And it's true that there's no really serious side effects of melatonin, but there are some non-serious side effects. Some kids have drowsiness, nausea, dizziness, mood changes, headache, GI symptoms. These are not life or death things, but these are something to consider. Just because something's tolerable doesn't mean that there's no issues. So there are some side effects that you should consider. The other thing is, we don't have long-term studies on melatonin. We don't have studies that go beyond a couple of years. We don't really know what the long-term effects are. You're putting a hormone into the kid's body, so you don't really know how this is affecting puberty, bone health. And again, these are not studies done in typical kids. So I would advise extreme caution with melatonin. And it's not even a medication. So melatonin is an over-the-counter supplement. Supplements are not regulated like medications, which have to be FDA approved. So you don't even know what's in the bottle. Something might say 1 milligram or 5 milligram. It might be 10 times that or 10% of that. You don't even know if you're getting that. You might be getting something else. There's no regulation of supplements. So you have to consider product quality. Now with gummies too, kids think they look like candy. So there's a huge risk outside of this bedtime routine with poison control. Kids will overdose on this stuff. They'll sneak into the refrigerator or the cupboard and just start eating it. These are not likely to be life-threatening things, but you have some non-life-threatening cases of these things. So you need to think about safe storage as a parent. You have to consider that too. Many parents will ask about Benadryl, diphenhydramine. You might take that when you go on a plane or something. You might wonder, is that going to be okay for my kid? This is definitely sedating, but it's not a routine thing to give a kid. It's not labeled as a nighttime sleep aid, and there's really limited evidence in kids. One small trial, and it doesn't even provide much benefit, 8 to 10 minutes of additional sleep. And over time, anyone will develop tolerance, adults and kids, to Benadryl. So it's not going to work long-term anyway. And there's all these overdose risks. It has all these things called anticholinergic side effects, urinary retention, dry mouth, etc. So I wouldn't mess with Benadryl either, personally. Now, if your child has restless legs, frequent night tossing, turning, physical restlessness, it's worth talking with your pediatrician about restless leg syndrome and checking their ferritin, which is like an iron-related marker. It's a blood test. You can look for deficiency. That can be treated with iron if it's confirmed to be low. But you need to do this under medical guidance, and you don't want to just give your kid iron because you can have intoxication, and it's not a general sleep aid. So it's a very narrow, specific indication. But think about that if your kid is having restless sleep and tossing and turning a lot. Outside of these things, most supplements are unproven. Magnesium, L-theanine, omega-3, probiotics, vitamin D. There's no high-quality randomized control trials supporting these as sleep interventions in kids. So keep that in mind. Most claims are unsupported. So when you're meeting with a pediatrician or doctor, clarify the sleep problem. Is it about the timing, the behavior, anxiety, pain, restlessness? What's going on in their life? Snoring, breathing problems, sleep disorder, red flags. Even sleep apnea can have sleep apnea if they're overweight, especially. Do they have consistent routines? Do they have limits? Are there screens? Are they having restless legs? If you're talking about melatonin, think about dose and timing and duration and monitoring. So there's so much to go into there. I hope this has been helpful. But a safer decision framework is optimizing the routine, checking for restlessness, discussing short-term options, trying a bunch of things out. So don't think, should I give melatonin or not? Try to think about what's the underlying problem that we're solving. So the bottom line is that melatonin can be an adjunct for short-term in selected cases. There's limited safety data. We don't know long-term stuff. Antihistamines like Benadryl are not routine sleep aids for kids. Most important, most effective thing are better routines, not a pill. There's a lot of info here, so check out this free PDF guide for this video if you want to have a clearer conversation with your doctor and remember some of these details for the future. Hope this has been helpful. Check out this other video and check out my free newsletter, medicalwisdom.org, for deeper dives and some personal takes. Take care.